Every Sunday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I stand at the front door of my son's house holding a basket of apple pie. Each time I hesitate to ring the bell, but I press the button anyway. Behind that door lives my only son, Reed, his wife, Tamsin, and my two grandchildren, Cody and Ashley. The door opens and I see Tamsin's face, with perfectly drawn eyebrows and a thin smile that never reaches her eyes. Marilyn, she says my name with barely concealed irritation. We weren't expecting you this early. It is now exactly 4 hours and 2 minutes. The time I've been coming in for the last 3 years since they moved into this house. Hello, Tamsin. I smile, holding out the basket. I baked an apple pie. Is Reed home? He's in the garage working on the lawnmower. She takes the basket with 2 fingers. Come on in, but we haven't set the table yet. Ashley's doing homework, and Cody's at practice. I walk through the hallway, remembering how we picked out this house 3 years ago. The living room was empty then, with bare walls and the smell of fresh paint. Tamsin marveled at the high ceilings, and Reed nervously counted the monthly payments in his mind. Harvey, my husband, had died the year before of a heart attack, leaving me with insurance and savings. At the time, Tamsin had been grateful, hugging me, calling me her second mom, telling me they never would have realized their dream without me. And now I'm standing in the middle of their perfect living room feeling like an intruder. Mom! Reed comes in the back door, wiping his hands with a rag. He's wearing old jeans and a t-shirt with the logo of General Motors, the company where he works as a manufacturing engineer. I didn't hear you come in. He hugs me, and I close my eyes for a moment, breathing in the smell of the machine oil and cologne I gave him for Christmas. Did you bring pie? He asks, noticing the basket. Apple, your favorite. Honey, we talked about sugar and flour. Tamsin glances at Reed. Your son promised to watch his diet. Dr. Briggs said his cholesterol. One bite won't hurt. Reed winks at me. I work out at the gym 3 times a week. Tamsin presses his lips into a thin line but doesn't say anything, walking off into the kitchen with my basket. I know the pie will probably end up in the trash. None of my culinary gifts have been eaten in this house in the last year. How's your knee? Reed asks as he escorts me into the living room. Were you able to get in to see a specialist? Yeah, I saw Dr. Pierce on Tuesday. He says I don't need surgery yet, and he's prescribed some new meds. That's good. Reed nods, but I can tell his mind's elsewhere. Tamsin got a promotion at work. She's now a senior logistics manager. Congratulations, I say sincerely. Whatever our relationship, I respect Tamsin's hard work. Will you be celebrating? We already did. Went to the Blue Pine last week. He looks away awkwardly, and I realize I was deliberately not invited. My 14-year-old granddaughter comes down the stairs, staring at her phone. Her brown hair is gathered in a careless bun. Hi, Grandma, she says without enthusiasm. Hello, sweetheart. I get up to hug her, but she takes a step back, raising the phone like a shield. I'm texting with Zoe about a history project. I need to finish it. And she goes back upstairs, leaving me with my arms outstretched. Reed smiles guiltily. Teenagers, he says. She's in a phase now where parents and grandparents are just an unbearable burden. I nod, dropping my hands. Do I remember Ashley differently? She used to climb into my lap, asking me to tell stories about what her daddy was like when she was a kid. When did that change? After we moved into this house or before? The clinking of dishes comes from the kitchen, and Tamsin calls us to the table. The dining room table is set impeccably white tablecloths, the china plates I gave them for the housewarming party, the silverware I inherited from Harvey's grandmother. Cody should be back from practice in half an hour, Tamsin says, arranging the dishes. Coach Barnes keeps them late before the tournament. She's prepared rosemary roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, and fresh vegetable salad. Reed and his family used to come to my house every week, and I would cook his favorite meals. But about a year ago, Tamsin decided it would be more convenient if I came to their house, because that way the kids wouldn't have to go anywhere after a busy week. So, what's the news this week? I ask. Ah, you haven't heard? Tamsin tilts his head with feigned surprise. We're in the process of remodeling the kitchen. These cabinets are already so outdated, and the laminate countertops are just awful. We're thinking Italian marble and handmade oak cabinets. But the house is brand new. I say cautiously. Wasn't the kitchen one of the perks when you bought it? That was 3 years ago, Marilyn. Tamsin rolls his eyes. Trends change. Plus, with my promotion, we can afford better materials. I glance at Reed, who's concentrating on mashed potatoes. His face expresses nothing, but I know that look. It's the look he got when he broke a vase when he was 12 and was afraid to admit it. I hope the remodel won't be too hard on your budget, I say, cutting up the chicken. After all, the mortgage is still. We can handle it, Tamsin interrupts, her voice turning icy. Besides, a house is an investment. A quality kitchen will increase its value. Sure, I nod, trying to change the subject. How's Cody doing in school? Does his teacher, Mrs. Fletcher, still think he needs extra help with his reading? Tamsin throws me a sharp look. Cody is dyslexic, Marilyn, she says slowly, as if explaining to a child. It's not something you can fix with extra tutoring. We're working with a specialist, and he's making great progress. I know what dyslexia is, I reply, trying to remain calm. I've been a nurse for 35 years and… Yes, at the county hospital, she interrupts again. But educational psychology is a different field. The specialist who works with Cody has a doctorate in that field. I stop talking, feeling the color rise to my cheeks. Reed clears his throat, clearly uncomfortable. Mom's right to ask about Cody, he says softly. He's really making progress. Recently, he read an entire book almost without stuttering. Tamsin sighs and nods, her face softening for a moment. Yes, that was wonderful. He was so proud of himself. For a brief moment, there is a connection between us, a shared love for the boy. But the moment passes quickly when the front door opens and Cody bursts in, flushed, with a dirty baseball in his hand. Grandma! He exclaims, and my heart melts at the joy in his voice. At 10 years old, he hasn't yet learned how to hide his emotions. You won't believe it! I caught such a hard ball today! Coach Barnes said I'll be on the main roster for the tournament. Cody! Tamsin's stern voice stops him. You're covered in mud! Go wash your hands and change your clothes first. The boy's smile fades, but he nods and runs upstairs. I suppress a sigh. Another hug I've been deprived of. He loves baseball so much, I say. Harvey would be so proud. He played in high school too, didn't he? Yeah, Reed told me about it. Tamsin puts the salad on Cody's plate. But kids' sports are different now, more competitive. Coach Barnes thinks Cody has potential for an athletic scholarship. At 10 years old, talking about college seems premature, I remark without thinking. Tamsin's fork hits the plate with a loud clink. It's never too early to think about children's education. Her voice rings with irritation. Maybe in your time it was enough to just finish school and go to work, but now… Tamsin, Reed said warningly. Mom was just giving her opinion. No, I want to make that point clear. Tamsin straightens up. Reed and I are building a definite future for our children. We want them to go to good colleges, get prestigious professions, live better lives than we did. And yes, that requires planning from an early age. I understand, I say quietly. I wanted a better future for Reed, too. That's why Harvey and I were saving every dime so he could go to college. And that's commendable, Tamsin nods indulgently. But times have changed. There's a lot more competition now. You need connections, experience, the right environment. I can feel the irritation growing inside. What is she trying to say? That Harvey and I weren't good enough for our son? Reed grew up to be a decent man, I say, controlling my voice. He's educated, hardworking, caring. Isn't that the most important thing? Of course, Tamsin smiles falsely. But you have to agree, with the right connections, he could have accomplished more. Maybe become chief engineer instead of just one of many in the department. Reed looks down at his plate, his shoulders tense. I know I should keep quiet for his sake, but the words come out. I don't think being just one of many is a bad thing. Harvey was a truck driver his whole life, and he was never ashamed of it. He provided for his family, was a respected man. And he died at 58 of a heart attack, Tamsin says quietly. But every word sounds like a blow. Maybe if he had a job with less stress and better health insurance. Tamsin! Reed finally raises his voice. This is too much. There's a heavy silence. I sit there, numb with shock and pain. How can she say that about Harvey? About a man she's never met? Cody comes down the stairs, already clean and changed, but stops when he senses the tension. What's wrong? He asks uncertainly. Nothing, sweetie. Tamsin changes his tone to an affectionate one. Go eat. Your food is getting cold. Cody sits down next to me, casting a concerned look at his father. It's okay, champ. Reed tries to smile. Tell Grandma about your catch. Cody starts talking about practice, the hard ball, the praise from the coach. I nod and smile, but there's still a storm raging inside. How did we get to this point? When did a family dinner turn into a battlefield? After dinner, Tamsin gets up to put the dishes away. I get up to help, but she shakes her head. Don't worry, Marilyn, she says. I know how you like to do things your way, but there's a certain order to my kitchen. I sit back down, feeling unnecessary. Reed takes Cody away to help with the dishes, and I'm left alone in the dining room. Through the open door, I can see the three of them moving around the kitchen. Tamsin washing, Reed wiping, Cody arranging the plates. They look like the perfect family from a commercial. And I'm not in that picture. Ashley comes down the stairs, her phone still in her hand. Grandma, Mom said you were asking about me. Yes, sweetie, how are you doing in school? Ashley shrugs. It's okay. I got all A's except for gym class. Miss Lawrence makes us run a mile every Tuesday. It's so boring. We didn't like gym class in my day either, I say. But you know, your grandpa always said that a healthy body helps you have a healthy mind. Uh-huh. Ashley loses interest. Mom says you used to be a nurse? Yeah, 35 years at Ogden County Hospital, 20 of them in the ICU. Cool. Ashley looks up from the phone. Have you ever seen people die? The question catches me off guard. Yes, honey, quite a lot. It's part of being a nurse. What's it like? Scary? Sometimes sad, sometimes peaceful. Depends on the circumstances. But you know, more often than not, it wasn't the deaths that I remembered, but the recoveries. Ashley nods, mulling something over. We have a program at our school for future medics. We can start next year. My mom says it's better to choose a business major, but Ashley, Tamsin's voice comes from the kitchen. Did you do your Spanish homework? Uh, almost. Then go finish it. You know the rule. No talking until homework is done. Ashley sighs and heads upstairs. That brief moment of connection with her granddaughter is cut short. Tamsin sits down across from me, folding his hands on the table. Marilyn, I think we need to talk, she says firmly. I've noticed that these Sunday dinners are getting more and more tense. I'm sorry if I've done something wrong, I start, but she raises her hand, stopping me. It's not about what you do, it's about what you represent, she says bluntly. You're reminding Reed of his past, of what we're trying to get away from, of the mentality that limits our options. Mentality? Yeah, that, contented mediocrity. Tamsin makes it sound like a diagnosis. Reed could have accomplished more if he'd been taught from childhood to strive for the best, not settle for what he has. And I don't want our kids to take that from you. I can feel something inside of me breaking. All these years of patience, smiles, help, and this is how she sees me? Mediocre. Harvey and I worked our whole lives so Reed could get an education so he could have opportunities we didn't have. We were never rich, but we gave him love, support, and values, and I'm not ashamed of that. And look where he is now, Tamsin spreads his hands. Stuck in a middle position at a company where he could have been an executive, all because he's afraid to take risks, afraid to stand out. That's what you taught him. At that moment, something falls in the kitchen and Cody cries out. Tamsin jumps up and rushes over there. I can hear their voices, Reed calming Cody down, Tamsin reprimanding them both for being careless. A few minutes later, Reed walks into the dining room. Sorry about the noise. Cody dropped a stack of plates, but nothing broke. It's okay. Reed, I should probably get going. It's late, and I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow. So early, we usually watch a movie after dinner. Tonight it's Cody's turn to pick. I'm a little tired, I say, standing up and trying not to cringe at the pain in my knee. And I don't think Tamsin's in the mood for company tonight. Reed looks toward the kitchen, then back at me, and I see understanding and shame in his eyes. She didn't mean what she said about Dad, he says quietly. She's just very ambitious. Sometimes she forgets the feelings of others. I know. I nod, though I don't really understand how I can be so cold. Don't worry about me. I'm fine. Reed walks me to the door and helps me put on my coat. On the porch, he hugs me awkwardly. I'll stop by during the week, he promises, as he's promised so many times over the past few months. Maybe Wednesday after work? I nod, knowing that's not going to happen. There will be an apology call, an important meeting, extra hours of work. As I turn to leave, Tamsin appears in the doorway. Her face is cold, determined. Marilyn, she says, ignoring Reed's warning look. I think we'd all be better off if we took a break from these weekly dinners, at least for a while. Tamsin, we didn't discuss this. Reed looks stunned. We just discussed it. She doesn't even look at him. We need space, Reed. Your mother is interfering too much in our lives, in our parenting. She's undermining our authority. You're not welcome here, Marilyn. At least not until you learn to respect our decisions and our way of life. I look at her, then at Reed, who's standing there with his eyes down, unable to meet my gaze. And in that moment, something inside me snaps. All these years of patience, all these swallowed resentments, and for what? To stand on the doorstep of a house I helped buy and hear that I'm not welcome here. I straighten up as far as my aching knee will allow and smile. Not the tortured smile I've worn for the past few years, but a real, almost liberating one. Good luck with your mortgage, I say quietly, looking straight into Tamsin's eyes, and walk away without looking back. The door of my house closed behind me with a quiet click, cutting off the outside world. I stood in the hallway with my back against the door and listened to the silence. No one asked how my day had gone. No one called for dinner. No one turned the TV up too loud. After 3 years of widowhood, I still hadn't gotten used to this deafening silence. Dropping my shoes, I walked into the kitchen and turned on the kettle. My little ritual. A cup of chamomile tea before bed, no matter what kind of day it was. My knee was aching more than usual, probably from nerves, or the weather. The barometer on the wall predicted rain. While the kettle boiled, I opened the desk drawer where I kept important documents. Among the insurance policies, medical prescriptions, and bank statements was a thick blue folder. I took it out and put it on the kitchen table, but I didn't open it right away. I poured the tea, added a spoonful of the honey I'd bought from the old beekeeper Jenkins at the farmer's market, and then sat down, undoing the straps of the folder. Inside were the deeds to Reed and Tamsin's house, the purchase agreement, the appraisal report, the insurance papers, and of course, the mortgage agreement. I flipped through the pages until I reached the last one where the signatures were. Mine was next to Reed's. I'm a co-borrower. I am responsible for the mortgage payments as much as my son. Tamsin didn't know that. When we did the paperwork 3 years ago, Reed insisted that my involvement remain between us. Tamsin is proud, Mom, he said then. She doesn't want to feel dependent on anyone. I understood him and agreed to keep the secret. After all, I didn't just sign the papers, I put down a third of the down payment. The money Harvey and I were saving for our old age. Harvey. Sometimes I still thought I could hear his footsteps in the next room or the sound of the newspaper he liked to read in the evenings. Today, after Tamsin had told me he was dead, the memories came flooding back. I closed my eyes and saw us 40 years ago. Young, newly married, we sat at the same kitchen table in our first rented apartment and counted money. Harvey had just gotten a job as a truck driver. I was working as a nurse at the county hospital. We put $15 aside each week, first for our own house, then for Reed's education, then for our old age. Never spend what you put aside, Marilyn, Harvey said, placing the bills into envelopes labeled. That's sacred, especially money for old age. No one will take care of us but ourselves. I'd always followed that rule. Even when Reed went off to college and we had to tighten our belts, we didn't touch the emergency fund. When we needed to replace the roof, we took out a small loan, but we didn't touch the savings. When Harvey turned 55, we began to seriously discuss retirement. We planned the trips we'd always dreamed of: the Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, maybe even Hawaii. But 3 years later, Harvey died of a heart attack right behind the wheel of his truck. The doctor said he died instantly, didn't agonize, as if that was supposed to comfort me. After he died, I was left alone in the house we'd been paying off for 30 years, with savings we'd been saving all our lives, with an insurance policy that paid out a significant amount, and with a hole in my heart that nothing could fill. Reed was the only family I had. He helped with the funeral, handled the paperwork, spent evenings with me when I couldn't sleep. 6 months after Harvey died, he met Tamsin at a corporate event. She worked for the same company, but in the logistics department. Beautiful, ambitious, with business acumen and a clear plan for her life. I remember our first meeting. She brought a bottle of good wine and spoke to me respectfully, asking me questions about my work, about what Reed was like as a child. She seemed genuinely interested in building a relationship. Their wedding was modest, a small ceremony in a city park, a buffet at a local restaurant. Tamsin insisted I sit at the head table, next to her parents. Things changed when Ashley was born. Tamsin became more demanding, more critical of everything about the baby. When I offered to help, she politely but firmly declined. "We have everything under control, Marilyn, but thank you for the offer." When I tried to offer advice, she reminded me that parenting methods had changed a lot since I'd raised Reed. I backed off, deciding not to impose. Maybe she was right. Maybe I really didn't understand modern approaches to parenting, but I couldn't back down at all. This was my only granddaughter. With Cody's birth, things improved a bit. Tamsin was working, and she needed help. 3 days a week, I picked Ashley up from daycare and sat with her until the evening. When Cody got older, I would pick them both up. We baked cookies, read books, and played board games. Those were happy years. And then they decided to buy a house. I still remember the day Reed came to me, nervously rubbing my car keys. "Mom, we need to have a serious talk," he said, sitting at the same kitchen table where I sat now. Tamsin and I had found a house. A beautiful house in a nice neighborhood with a big yard for the kids next to a great school. But you can't afford the down payment," I finished for him. He nodded, looking into his coffee cup. "We've been saving, Mom. Really have been saving. But real estate prices are going up faster than our savings. And the kids are growing up. Ashley's going to middle school soon. If we don't move now, we'll miss our chance to get her into Northside." I knew Northside was the best school in the district, with a strong academic program, good teachers, a variety of clubs, a school that opened doors to the best colleges. "How much are you short?" I asked then. Reed named the amount, and I felt my heart clench. It was almost a third of what Harvey and I had saved for our old age. I imagined what Harvey would say. He would have frowned, shook his head, and said, "Marilyn, we've worked our whole lives for that money. Reed is a grown man. He has to provide for his family on his own." But Harvey wasn't around, and Reed was my only son, and I wanted my grandchildren to get the best education, the best opportunities. "I'll help," I said then. Reed's eyes lit up with hope. "Really? Oh, Mom, you don't know how important this is to us." Tamsin was beginning to think we'd have to give up the house. "But there's a condition," I added. "I'll be a co-borrower on the mortgage." Reed frowned. "Why? We can handle the payments, Mom. We just need help with the down payment." "That's my condition, Reed. I'm investing a significant amount of money and I want to make sure it's protected." Actually, I wasn't thinking about protecting the money. I was thinking about protecting my role in my son and grandchildren's lives. I was afraid that one day, once they got the house, Tamsin would find a way to remove me from the family completely. The papers were my insurance, my guarantee that I would remain a part of their lives. Reed agreed, albeit reluctantly. We signed the papers, I wired the money, and they bought a house. The same house they'd practically kicked me out of today. I took another sip of my tea, which had already gone cold. Maybe Harvey was right. Maybe we shouldn't have spent our savings to help Reed. But how could I say no to my only child? Thinking about it now, I realized it wasn't just about helping Reed. It was about me. My desperation not to be alone. I was afraid of losing touch with the only family I had left. And instead of building that connection on mutual respect and love, I tried to buy it. But money can't buy respect. I realized that today, standing on the doorstep of the house I helped purchase and hearing from Tamsin that I wasn't welcome there. I closed the folder and set it aside. It was time to make a decision. Not out of revenge, I didn't feel the urge to get back at Tamsin. Not even after what she'd said about Harvey, not even after all the humiliation, but for my own dignity, for the right to see my grandchildren, for everything that was still important in my life. I picked up the phone and dialed the number of Marge Cronin, my longtime friend who had worked at First National Bank for 30 years. If anyone could give me mortgage advice, it was her. After my conversation with Marge, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time thinking about the situation. I needed a plan of action, not to rush into action, not to call Reed in the middle of the night with accusations, not to threaten Tamsin with legal consequences. I needed to be subtle, deliberate. The first step was to meet with Reed alone. Take him out for lunch or coffee without Tamsin. Tell him about last night's incident, what his wife said. Not to turn him against her, but to make him realize how much it hurt me. The second step is to remind him of my role in buying the house. Not in a threatening way, just as a fact. To give him the opportunity to draw his own conclusions. The third step is to offer a compromise. I don't demand weekly dinners. I understand that Tamsin needs space, that she has her own ideas about family. But I want to see my grandchildren on a regular basis. Maybe take them away for the weekend once a month, or see them after school. Anything to keep in touch. I wrote these points down on a piece of paper, trying to be honest with myself, not letting resentment or pride dictate my actions. I didn't want to retaliate against Tamsin. I didn't want to put Reed in the position of choosing between mother and wife. I didn't want to use financial leverage as a weapon. But I also couldn't allow myself to be forced out of my grandchildren's lives. I couldn't let myself be treated as a burden, as a reminder of a past better forgotten. I folded the sheet and put it back in the blue folder with the deeds to the house. Then I put the folder away in my desk drawer and locked it. It was getting late, and I needed to get some rest before tomorrow. I had a difficult conversation with my son ahead of me, and I had to be ready for it. Going up to my bedroom, I slowly changed into my nightgown, trying not to disturb my sore knee. Before I got into bed, I walked over to the dresser where Harvey's picture stood. He was smiling, standing next to the brand new truck the company had given him after 20 years of work. His eyes glowed with pride. "What would you do, Harvey?" I asked quietly, looking at the picture. "How would you protect our family?" I knew he wouldn't have kept quiet, wouldn't stand for disrespect. But he also wouldn't have acted out of pride or resentment. Harvey had always been judicious, always looking for a fair solution for everyone. I lay in bed, feeling fatigue cover me with a heavy blanket. Tomorrow would be a new day. A day when I will start fighting not for money, not for a house, but for my place in the lives of those I love most in the world. It took me 2 days to get up the nerve to call Reed. Every time I picked up the phone, I found a reason to put it off. In the morning, it was too early. He was going to work. In the afternoon, he was busy. In the evening, Tamsin could be there. But on the third day, I finally dialed his number, deciding I couldn't put it off any longer. "Mom?" He sounded surprised. I rarely called his cell phone during work hours. "Is something wrong?" "No, honey, it's nothing." I tried to speak calmly, without strain. "I just wanted to invite you to lunch. It's been a long time since we've had a heart-to-heart." The pause on the other end of the line was so long, I thought maybe the connection was broken. "Reed? Are you there?" "Yeah, Mom, I'm sorry. I'm just wondering when I can make some time. I've been busy at work and at home." He didn't finish the sentence, but I got it. Tamsin's home. "I realize you're busy." I kept my voice steady, though my insides clenched at the thought that he might say no. "But this is important, Reed. We need to talk." He was silent again, and I could almost see him rubbing the bridge of his nose, a gesture that came up whenever he had a difficult decision to make. "All right," he said at last. "I can be free at lunchtime tomorrow. Meet me at the Blue Jay at 1 o'clock? The Blue Jay was a small cafe 2 blocks from Reed's office. We used to have lunch there when he first started at GM. Back then, 10 years ago, he'd called regularly and invited me to lunch, excited to treat my mom to his first paycheck. "Fine," I agreed. 1 o'clock at Soika. "Mom," his voice grew quieter, more uncertain. "Is this about Sunday? Because of what Tamsin said?" "We'll talk tomorrow, Reed," I said softly. "Not over the phone." I spent the rest of the day in a kind of nervous excitement, going over in my head everything I wanted to say to my son. I reread the mortgage documents again, laid out the bank statements that proved my down payment. I even made a small list of the main points so I wouldn't forget anything. But by late afternoon, I realized I was overloading myself. I didn't need to prepare like I was preparing for a court hearing. I was going to be talking to my son, not my opponent. I put away all the papers except the mortgage agreement and decided to trust my heart. After all, I knew Reed better than anyone. I knew when he was lying, when he was evasive, when he was really listening, and when he was just nodding politely. I hoped that knowledge would be enough. But the next day, I arrived at the Blue Jay 15 minutes early. I chose a table in the far corner, away from the windows and the front door, where no one would hear us. I ordered tea and waited. Reed showed up at exactly 1 o'clock. He was always punctual, a trait he'd inherited from Harvey. When he saw me, he waved and quickly crossed the room, maneuvering between the tables. He was wearing a navy blue suit with a white shirt, the work uniform of engineers at his level. He looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes. "Mom?" He leaned over and kissed my cheek before sitting down across from me. "You look good." It was a lie, and we both knew it. I hadn't slept well the last few nights, and my knee hurt so bad I had to take a painkiller before I left the house. "You too, sweetie," I smiled, playing along with him. "How are things going at work?" "Crazy days?" He rubbed his neck in a gesture that showed the tension. "New project, tight deadlines, constant meetings, the usual story." The waitress came over and we ordered. Reed chose a turkey sandwich and coffee. I chose soup and salad. When she stepped away, there was an awkward pause. Reed looked at his hands. I looked at him. "So," he finally said, looking up, "what did you want to talk about?" I took a deep breath. Despite all my preparation, I was having trouble getting started. "About Sunday," I said bluntly. "About what Tamsin said, and about home." Reed sighed and leaned back in his chair. "Mom, I'm sorry about what happened. Tamsin wasn't herself. Trouble at work, trouble with the kids. She didn't mean to hurt you." "Reed," I looked him straight in the eye. "She said I wasn't welcome in your house, that I was undermining your authority, that I represent—" How did she put it? "Oh yes, the satisfaction of mediocrity. And that's after she insinuated that your father died because of his not good enough job." Reed wrinkled his nose as if in physical pain. "That's not what she meant, Mom. She just—" "No, Reed." I stopped him gently but firmly. "There's no need to make excuses for her. I know that's what she meant. And I don't blame her for being ambitious or wanting a better future for your children. But I will not be treated like a nuisance, especially in the house I helped you buy." The waitress brought our drinks, and we both fell silent as she set the cups down and asked if we needed anything else. When she left, Reed was the first to break the silence. "Mom, I appreciate your help with the down payment. You know that. But Tamsin just needs time to—" "I didn't just help with the down payment, Reed," I interrupted him, pulling a folder out of my bag and taking out the mortgage agreement. "I'm a co-borrower on your mortgage. My name is next to yours on every page of this document. And Tamsin doesn't know that, does he?" Reed's face changed. The color drained from his cheeks, and he stared at the papers as if he'd seen a ghost. "You never told her, did you?" I continued. "All those 3 years she thought the house belonged to just the two of you, that you were handling the payments on your own." "Mom," his voice trembled. "I was going to tell her. I really was. But first we just moved, then Cody was born, then her promotion. There was always an excuse to put it off. And now she wants to remodel the kitchen with Italian marble." I shook my head. "Reed, I don't mind that you kept the truth from her. It was your decision, and I respected it. But now that I'd been effectively kicked out of the house I was still paying the monthly mortgage on, the situation was different." Reed looked like he wanted to fall through the ground. His shoulders slumped and he twisted his wedding ring nervously on his finger. "What do you want me to do?" he asked quietly. At that moment, the waitress came over with our food. We fell silent again, waiting for her to set our plates down and leave. I noticed that my appetite was gone, but I forced myself to take a spoon and taste the soup. "I want you to tell Tamsin the truth," I said when we were alone again. "The whole truth. About the fact that I put down a third of the down payment, that I'm a co-borrower, that without my signature on the paperwork and my steady income, the bank wouldn't have given you such a favorable interest rate." Reed's pale even more. She's gonna be furious, Mom. You have no idea what kind of temper she has when it comes to money and independence. I have a rough idea, I replied dryly. But that doesn't change the facts. And it doesn't change my decision. What decision? Reed tensed, as if expecting a blow. I set the spoon aside and looked him straight in the eye. I won't help with the mortgage anymore unless Tamsin changes his attitude toward me. Unless I'm allowed to see my grandchildren on a regular basis. And unless you stand up for my rights as a grandmother and as the person who helped you find a home. Reed turned even paler, even though it seemed impossible. You can't do this, Mom. You know that our budget is calculated down to the last dime. If I stop helping, you'll either have to tighten your belts or refinance your mortgage. I finished for him. I know, but it's my money, Reed. Money that your father and I have been saving all our lives. And I have the right to decide how to use it. I saw a strange mix of emotions in his eyes. Fear, of course, but also something akin to respect. Perhaps for the first time he saw me not just as a mom willing to do anything for his happiness, but as a person with her own boundaries and dignity. I'm not asking for much, Reed, I continued more gently. I don't demand weekly dinners if they are such a burden to Tamsin. I don't insist on being part of every family decision, but I do want respect. I want to be able to see my grandchildren, and I won't tolerate being treated like a burden. Reed remained silent, looking down at his plate. His sandwich remained untouched. I've always tried to be a good son, he finally said quietly. I always wanted to make you proud of me. But I'm also a husband and a father. I have obligations to Tamsin and the children. I know, sweetheart. I reached across the table and touched his wrist. And I'm not asking you to choose between me and them. I'm asking you to find a balance, a way that we can all be a family, even if we don't always agree with each other. Reed looked up and I saw tears in his eyes. He blinked quickly, trying to hide them. I don't know how to do this, Mom. Tamsin, she's very demanding. She has a clear idea of what our family should be, and she doesn't like it when things don't go according to her plan. Is that why you never contradict her? I asked gently. Even when she's wrong? Even when she insults your father's memory? Reed flinched as if struck by a blow. I know I should have stood up for you on Sunday. I know I should have said something when she talked about Dad. But I just froze. I always do. Why, Reed? I squeezed his hand. You've never been a coward. Never been afraid to stand up for what you believe in. This is different. He shook his head. Tamsin, she has a knack for making life unbearable when she's angry. It's not that she yells or makes scandals. No, she just freezes everything around her. She stops talking. She looks at you like you're deeply disappointed. And it can go on for days, weeks. I listened and I got sadder and sadder. My son, my smart, kind, strong son, turned into a man who fears his own shadow because of the woman he chose as his life partner. And the children? I asked. Do they too suffer from these cold periods? No, she's always the perfect mom with them, Reed grinned bitterly. That's why I try not to argue with her, so that there's peace in the house. So the kids don't see the tension, but they see how their father never speaks his mind, I said quietly. They see their grandmother out the door, and their father is silent. What kind of example does that set for them, Reed? He was silent for a long moment, pondering my words. Then he nodded slowly. You're right, Mom. You're always right about these things. But I don't know how to change things without destroying everything. Start with the truth. I pointed to the contract lying between us. Tell Tamsin about my role in buying the house. Not as a threat, not as an ultimatum, just as a fact she needs to know. And if she asks why I decided to tell her now, after 3 years of silence, then tell her the truth about that too. I shrugged. Tell her that after Sunday, I gave you a choice. Let her be mad at me if she needs to be. I can take it. Reed sighed heavily and ran a hand through his hair, another gesture he'd inherited from Harvey. Okay, he said finally. I'll talk to her tonight after the kids go to bed. And what do you say to my terms? I asked. About respect and time with the grandkids? I'll say they're fair demands. Reed met my gaze, and for a moment I saw the hardness in him. I'll say that you're an important part of our family, and that the kids have a right to have a relationship with their grandmother. And that that I will no longer remain silent when she speaks disrespectfully about you. I felt my eyes fill with tears and blinked quickly to hide them. I didn't want to press my son with emotion, even though his words touched me to the core. Thank you, Reed, I said simply. That's all I ask. We finished lunch in a lighter atmosphere, talking about other things, about Reed's work, about my garden, about the new book we'd both read. But underneath this casual conversation lay the realization that tonight was going to change a lot of things for all of us. When it was time to say goodbye, Reed hugged me tighter than usual. I felt him press his cheek against my hair for a moment, a gesture he hadn't done since he was a teenager. I love you, Mom, he said softly. And I'm going to do the right thing. I promise. I know, sweetheart, I replied, pulling back and looking into his eyes. You always do the right thing when it's really important. We said goodbye at the entrance to the cafe. Reed headed back to the office, and I walked slowly toward the bus stop, mulling over our conversation. I didn't feel triumphant or satisfied that I'd put my son in front of a difficult choice. Only a quiet determination and hope that our family would emerge from this crisis stronger and more honest. Not perfect. I haven't believed in perfect families for a long time, but one where there is room for everyone, even for a 67-year-old widow with arthritis and old-fashioned views on life. At home, sorting through my bag, I discovered I'd left the mortgage agreement with Reed. It hadn't been planned, but perhaps it was for the best. Now he'd have proof of what he was about to tell Tamsin. I went to the phone, fighting the urge to call him now and find out how the conversation went. But it was only 3 in the afternoon. Reed was still at work, and I wouldn't be talking to Tamsin until tonight. I had to be patient. Instead, I dialed Marge's number. She answered after the second ring. Marilyn? How was lunch? Better than I expected, I answered honestly. Reed agreed to talk to Tamsin, to tell her the truth about the house. That's good, Marge sounded pleased. But be prepared for a storm, dear. Women like your sister-in-law don't like surprises, especially ones involving money and control. I know, I sighed, sinking back into my chair. But I couldn't keep quiet anymore, Marge. Not after she practically shoved me out the door. And rightly so, Marge snorted. Time to show that young lady that the old guard had teeth, too. I laughed, feeling the tension of the last few days release a little. Marge always had a way of cheering me up with her directness and unyielding temper. Keep me posted, she said before she hung up. And remember, whatever happens, you did the right thing. I hung up the phone and looked at my watch. Time seemed to have slowed to a snail's pace. There was a long evening of waiting and uncertainty ahead. But for the first time in a long time, I felt not fear and uncertainty, but a strange calmness. It was as if by speaking my truth, I'd shed a heavy weight I'd been carrying for too long. Now all I had to do was wait for Tamsin's answer, and more importantly, to see if Reed would keep his promise to defend my place in their family. I wanted to believe in my son. I wanted to believe that somewhere beneath the mask of an obedient husband still lived the stubborn, principled boy Harvey and I had raised. The boy who was never afraid to tell the truth, even if it was inconvenient. The phone rang at 11 p.m., just as I was getting ready for bed. I knew it was Reed. She knows, he said without preamble, his voice sounding tired. I told her everything. How did she react? How do you think? She didn't believe me at first. Then she demanded to see the documents. Then she yelled. Then she shut up, which is even worse. I'm sorry you had to go through that, I said sincerely. She wants to talk to you, tomorrow, in person. I felt my heart quicken. A direct confrontation with Tamsin was exactly what I subconsciously dreaded. Good. Let her come to me anytime. Are you sure? She's very angry, Mom. I'll get over it. It's a necessary conversation. After the talk, I couldn't sleep for a long time. I imagined different scenarios for tomorrow's meeting, but in the end I realized I couldn't prepare for a conversation I had no control over. Tamsin showed up on my doorstep at 2 in the afternoon. She was impeccably dressed in a strict gray suit, her hair gathered in a perfect bun. Not a trace of yesterday's emotions on her face, just cold restraint. Marilyn, she nodded instead of greeting. Tamsin, come in. I've made tea. She went into the living room, looking around with undisguised curiosity. She'd rarely been here before, usually waiting in the car when Reed came to check on me. Make yourself comfortable. Can I get you some tea? No thanks. I won't be long. I've got a meeting at 4. I sat in the chair across from her, giving her a chance to start talking. Reed tells me you're a co-borrower on our mortgage and that you put a substantial amount of money down as a down payment. Yes, I did. Why didn't you tell me? She sounded a little bit angry. 3 years, Marilyn. For 3 years, I thought we were on our own. Reed asked me not to tell. He said you were proud and didn't want to feel dependent on anyone. I respected his decision. But now all of a sudden, I'm using it as leverage. Her eyes narrowed. Threatened to stop helping with the payments if I didn't jump through hoops on your command. I never said anything like that. I just told Reed I wanted respect and to be able to see my grandchildren. That's not too much of a request considering the circumstances. Tamsin snorted. You're manipulating him, using money to control our family. No, Tamsin. I'm using my legal rights to protect myself from your attempts to force me out of my sons' and grandchildren's lives. She flinched as if I'd struck her. For a moment, her perfect mask cracked, and I saw a mixture of resentment and fear in her eyes. I've never, she started, but she paused. I just want my family to be strong and independent. I want my children to have everything I've been deprived of. What exactly have you been deprived of, Tamsin? Reed didn't tell me much about your childhood. She was silent, clearly unwilling to answer. But after a few seconds, she spoke. I grew up in a trailer park in Grand Junction. My mother worked 3 shifts as a waitress, and my father left and came back whenever he wanted. In the good months, we had enough money for food and bills. In the bad months, we ate pasta with ketchup and sat by candlelight because the electricity was cut off for non-payment. I kept quiet, realizing that any word of sympathy would be taken as pity. They made fun of us at school, she continued, at our secondhand clothes, at the fact that we brought lunch in grocery bags instead of nice lunchboxes. I swore to myself that my children would never know what it was like to be the poorest in class. They would never be ashamed of their home or their family. And you've accomplished a lot. Higher education, a career, a beautiful home, happy children. You can be proud of yourself. I'm still on the path. Tamsin shook her head. Every day I fight not to slip backwards. Every decision has to lead to more stability, more success. I can't let myself relax for a minute. Even if that struggle makes you unhappy, even if it alienates you from the people who love you, you don't understand. You've never known real poverty. You've never known what it's like to wake up cold at night because the heat's been turned off. Or to hear your mother crying in the kitchen because she doesn't know what to feed the kids tomorrow. You're right, I've never known poverty like this. Harvey and I have always lived modestly but steadily, and I admire you for rising from such hardship. But Tamsin, can't you see that you're transferring your childhood fears to your present situation? You and Reed are not poor. You have good jobs, savings, a house. A house I can't afford without your help, as it turns out. She grinned bitterly. Another facade, another lie. Not a lie, just an incomplete picture. Many families get help from their parents when they buy their first home. There's no shame in that. For you, maybe. Tamsin stood up and walked to the window. But for me, it's proof that I still haven't gotten where I want to be, that I'm still dependent on other people's help. I stared at her straight back, and suddenly I didn't see a powerful woman, but a scared trailer park girl who had struggled her whole life to escape poverty. What are you going to do now? Now that you know the truth? Tamsin turned to me, her face impenetrable again. I have no choice, do I? If I refuse your terms, you'll stop helping with the mortgage and we'll lose the house. Or be forced to give up other things. Cody's classes, Ashley's school, everything I wanted to give my kids. I would never use my children as a bargaining chip. I would never jeopardize their well-being. I just want to be a part of their lives, Tamsin. I want them to know their grandmother. I want you to not look at me as an enemy, but as an ally in raising happy, healthy children. She was silent for a long time, looking at me with an unreadable expression. Then she nodded slowly. Okay, you can see the kids. We can set up a regular schedule, but I have conditions. I'm listening. No criticizing my parenting methods in front of the children. No candy or gifts without my consent. And no talking about money, especially the house and mortgage. The kids can't know you're helping us financially. I agree. Provided you never speak disrespectfully about Harvey or our lifestyle in front of the children ever again. Tamsin pressed her lips together but nodded. That's fair enough. We looked at each other across the room, two women bound only by love for the same people. Not friends, but not enemies either. Just two parts of the same family trying to find a way to coexist. There's one more thing, Tamsin said, walking back to the couch and pulling an envelope out of her bag. I've prepared the paperwork to refund your portion of the down payment, with interest. Reed and I will take out an additional loan to pay you back. That won't be necessary, Tamsin. I'm not asking for a refund. I know you don't, but I do. I need to know that the house is all ours, that we earned it ourselves. What about the mortgage? I'm still a co-borrower. We'll be refinancing as soon as we can, maybe in a year or two. Until then, I recognize that we need your help, but it's temporary. I knew how important her sense of independence was to her, so I didn't argue. Okay, but remember, helping your family isn't a debt to be repaid. It's something we do out of love. Maybe in your world. Tamsin smiled weakly. In mine, debts always have to be repaid. Otherwise, they tend to grow and choke you when you least expect it. Our conversation was interrupted by the doorbell. I was surprised. I wasn't expecting anyone. Tamsin frowned too. It wasn't Reed. He's at work until 6. I went to open it and was surprised to find Cody and Ashley on the doorstep. They were standing side by side, Cody with a baseball bat in his hand, Ashley with a backpack over his shoulders. Grandma! Cody rushed over to me. We came to save you! Rescue? I stroked his head confusedly, looking at Ashley with a questioning look. We heard Daddy and Mommy fighting last night, she explained. Mom was yelling that you wanted to take our house away. And today she said she was coming to see you to sort it out once and for all. We were afraid she might hurt you. So we ran off the school bus and came to defend you, Cody added, raising his bat. I know how to hit home runs. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. My grandchildren, thinking their mother might hurt me, ran away from school to protect me. What's going on? Tamsin appeared in the doorway, her face contorted with shock. Cody? Ashley? What are you doing here? You're supposed to be at school. We're not going to let you hurt Grandma, Cody said bravely, stepping between me and Tamsin. Hurt? Tamsin looked stunned. What are you talking about? We heard you yelling that you hate Grandma and that she's minding her own business. Ashley crossed her arms over her chest. And that you deal with her. What's that supposed to mean if not a threat? Tamsin's face changed as she realized the kids had heard her breakdown last night. She knelt down to be level with Cody. Honey, put the bat down, please. I'm not going to hurt anyone. Grandma and I are just talking. Are we? Cody looked at me questioningly. Really? I confirmed. Adults sometimes raise their voices when they argue, but it doesn't mean they want to hurt each other. But you said such horrible things, Ashley turned to her mother, about Grandma trying to control us with money. Tamsin straightened, her face pale. I was upset, Ashley. I said things I didn't mean. Sometimes adults make mistakes too. Then why don't you want us to see Grandma? Ashley continued. Why do you always say we don't have time to visit her? Tamsin looked at me helplessly. I decided to intervene. Ashley, Cody, your mom is very busy and wants you to have time to do a lot of important things. Sometimes that can make you not have time for other things, but your mom and I just agreed that you're going to spend more time with me now. Really? Cody brightened up. Really? Tamsin confirmed, and I noticed the genuine sadness in her eyes when she saw how happy the kids were. We'll make a schedule. Maybe you can spend one weekend a month at Grandma's, if that's what you want, of course. Of course we do! Cody jumped up and down with excitement. Grandma bakes the best cookies in the world. And she tells stories about Grandpa and when Daddy was little, Ashley added with unexpected warmth. I love those stories. I felt tears come to my eyes. All this time, I'd thought the kids were getting away from me, and they missed me as much as I missed them. Maybe we could spend the rest of the day here, Ashley suggested it. Since we missed school anyway? I can help Grandma with the garden, and Cody's been wanting to look at Grandpa's old baseball cards for ages. Tamsin hesitated, and I could see her struggling with her habit of control and her desire to make the kids happy. I have a meeting at 4, she finally said. But I can have Reed pick you up after work, if it's okay with Grandma, of course. Of course it's okay, I smiled. We'll find something to do. Tamsin nodded, then looked at her watch. I have to go. Ashley, keep an eye on your brother. No walking without Grandma's permission. And no TV until you've done your homework. Yes, ma'am. Ashley saluted jokingly, and Tamsin smiled back in surprise. I walked Tamsin to the door. On the threshold, she turned around. It's okay, I said softly. We'll get through this. I know we will. It's just, thank you for not telling the kids about the money and the mortgage. They shouldn't think they're living in a house we can't afford. I would never do that. They need to feel safe. Tamsin nodded, then suddenly reached out and touched my shoulder. A fleeting gesture, but there was more warmth in it than in all our previous interactions. See you tonight, she said, and walked out. It had been 3 months since our conversation with Tamsin. A lot had changed in that time, though not in the way I had hoped. We had established a new routine, more like a cold truce than a true reconciliation. The last Sunday of each month became Grandma's Day. The kids would come to my house all day, sometimes overnight. Reed would bring them in the morning and pick them up in the evening. Tamsin never accompanied them, always finding reasons: work, appointments, household chores. On Thursdays, I'd pick up Cody from baseball practice and spend a couple hours with him. Ashley started dropping by on her own when she had a window between classes or when she wanted to avoid another conflict with her mother. Today was the last Sunday in May, and the kids got to spend the day at my house. I got up early to bake blueberry muffins, Cody's favorite treat. Ashley preferred oatmeal raisin cookies, and they were already waiting in a tin box. At 9:45 in the morning, Reed's car pulled up. I watched through the window as he helped Cody get his backpack out, and Ashley jumped out of the front seat without waiting. Grandma! Cody rushed over to me, wrapping his arms around my waist. I brought a new video game. Daddy said you have a TV you can hook up a console to. Hello, sweetie. Of course I do. Just breakfast first, okay? I can already smell the muffins. Cody inhaled deeply. Blueberry? What else would it be? I winked at him and looked over at Ashley. Hi, Grandma. She leaned over and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. Would you mind if I read in the garden? I have a new book. Reed was standing at the foot of the porch, holding a bag of the kids' stuff. He looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes. You coming in? I asked, even though I knew the answer. No, Mom, I'm sorry. I need to stop by the office. He set the bag on the porch. Tamsin wanted me to remind you that Cody has a peanut allergy, and Ashley shouldn't be in the sun for more than an hour because of her sensitive skin. I nodded, suppressing the urge to say that I was well aware of my grandson's allergies and my granddaughter's sensitive skin, that I'd been a nurse for 35 years and was capable of taking care of children without reminders. Of course, Reed. Don't worry, everything will be fine. I know, Mom. He smiled tiredly. Just sending a message. You know, Tamsin. Reed hesitantly put his arm around me. It was unexpected. Usually our goodbyes were limited to a nod or a brief bye. Is everything okay, son? I asked quietly. Yeah, just, work, home, the usual. He stepped back, avoiding my gaze. Call me if you need anything. The day passed in pleasantries. Cody showed me his new game, patiently explaining the rules. Ashley sat in the garden with a book, occasionally looking up to show me a passage she liked. After lunch, we went to the park where Cody practiced throwing the ball around while Ashley and I sat on a bench and talked, from her school projects to my memories of Harvey. They were beautiful moments that I had been waiting for so long. And yet something wasn't right. The kids were happy to spend time with me, but sometimes I caught a strange expression in their eyes, a mixture of joy and guilt, as if they were betraying someone while enjoying Grandma's company. That evening, I offered to bake pizza for dinner. Cody excitedly began rolling out the dough, while Ashley chopped the ingredients for the toppings. Grandma, why doesn't Mom ever come with us? Cody suddenly asked. She always says she's busy, but Daddy's busy too and still makes time. I froze, not knowing what to say. Tamsin and I had agreed not to discuss our differences with the kids, but a direct lie seemed wrong. Your mom has a lot of responsibilities, Cody, and she and I have different views on some things. Sometimes it takes adults a while to find common ground. She's mad at you about the money, isn't she? Ashley didn't look up from the cutting board, but her voice sounded unexpectedly firm. Because you helped with the house. I sighed. Of course Ashley knew. She was too smart and observant not to understand the conflict. Not really, sweetie. It's not about the money. It's about the fact that your mom and I see family and relationships differently. She wants the best for you and Cody, and she works very hard for that. I want the best for you too, but sometimes our ideas of what that is differ. When the pizza was ready, we settled down in the living room in front of the TV, breaking one of Tamsin's rules: no food in front of the screen. It was our little act of rebellion, our secret pleasure. At 8 o'clock, the doorbell rang, but when I opened it, there was Tamsin standing on the doorstep. It was so unexpected that I was speechless for a moment. Good evening, Marilyn, she nodded, her face impenetrable. Reed's work got delayed, so I'm here to pick up the kids. Of course. I stepped back, letting her into the house. They're in the living room, finishing up dinner. Tamsin walked past me. She was dressed more casual than usual: jeans, a loose blouse, her hair pulled back into a simple ponytail. It made her look younger and somehow more vulnerable. Mom! Cody jumped up from the couch, but he didn't rush over to her like he would have done to me. Instead, he froze, as if assessing the situation. We're watching Super Team. I can see that. Tamsin glanced around at the leftover pizza and the TV on, but instead of the expected comment, she just nodded. Finish up and pack up. We should get home. I'll help Grandma clean up, Ashley said, glancing briefly at her mother. Okay, but don't take too long. Tamsin turned to me. Can I talk to you for a minute? In private. I nodded. We walked to the kitchen and Tamsin closed the door behind us. Reed told me about his conversation with you, she began without preamble. That you were worried about his condition. I frowned, not understanding. I hadn't discussed anything like that with Reed. I didn't. He said you'd noticed how tired and stressed he was. And you're right. He's on the verge of burnout. I remained silent, waiting for him to continue. Tamsin sighed, dropping her shoulders. I see it too, but I don't know how to help. He took on an extra load at work so we could start saving to refinance the mortgage, to pay you back and, get out of this addiction. I never asked for a refund. It was your idea, Tamsin. I know it was. But this is important to me. It's important to Reed, too, though he'll never admit it. He wants to prove he can provide for his family on his own. I felt a pang of guilt. Perhaps by insisting on my rights, I had created a situation in which my son felt inferior. Tamsin, I don't want Reed to drive himself to exhaustion. Money is just money. It's not worth his health or your happiness. It's not just about money. It's about pride. It's about self-respect. It's about knowing you can take care of your family without help. I understood her. Despite all our differences, we were similar in that we both wanted to be strong, independent, able to protect the ones we loved. What can I do? I asked simply. Tamsin looked surprised. She had obviously expected resistance. I don't know, I just wanted you to know what's going on. To understand why Reed sometimes seems distant or tired. We stood in the kitchen, two women bound by love for the same man, but separated by years of misunderstanding. In that moment, I saw in Tamsin not a rival, but simply a woman concerned about her husband's well-being. And I think she saw me not as a controlling mother-in-law, but as a mother concerned about her son. Thank you for telling me. I'll talk to him. Maybe we can find another solution. The kids gathered their things and I packed them the remaining muffins and cookies for breakfast. Tamsin didn't mind, even though she'd always insisted on a strict diet with no extra sugar before. A small concession, but a meaningful one. Cody gave me a big hug goodbye. Ashley kissed me on the cheek and whispered, "Thanks for everything." Tamsin just nodded, but there wasn't the same coldness in her eyes. I stood on the porch, waving at them until their car was around the corner. Then I went back into the house, which suddenly seemed too big and empty without the children's laughter. Ashley had left her book on the coffee table, a thick volume with a bookmark in the middle. I picked it up, thinking I'd have to give it to her the following Thursday when Ashley came in after school. It was another bridge between us. Those little accidental forgotten things that served as an excuse for unscheduled visits. I sat in silence, thinking about our new relationship arrangement. It was far from ideal. There was no full reconciliation, no genuine warmth between Tamsin and me, no casual family dinners where everyone felt comfortable. Instead, there was pragmatic compromise, a schedule of visits, rules about what could and couldn't be said in front of the kids. A careful balancing act between insisting on my rights and maintaining a fragile peace. I got what I wanted, the opportunity to be a part of my grandchildren's lives, but the price was high. I bought my place in the family at the cost of money and ultimatums. It was a victory but bittersweet, leaving an aftertaste of doubt. What happens next? What happens when Reed and Tamsin save enough money to refinance the mortgage and give me my share back? When will the financial dependency that currently binds us together disappear? Can our relationship survive without that foundation? Or would it crumble like a house of cards, exposing the void we'd filled with commitments and agreements? I didn't know the answers to these questions. No one did. We could only move forward day by day, trying to find a balance between our needs and the needs of others, between past hurts and hope for the future. Perhaps in time, the tension would lessen. Perhaps Tamsin will learn to trust me, and I will learn to respect her methods, even if I don't always agree with them. Maybe we'll find a way to build a relationship based not on financial dependence, but on mutual respect and a shared love for Reed and the kids. Or perhaps we'll remain in this state of cold peace, bound by circumstances but not our hearts. Two women, too different to truly understand each other, too similar to give in easily.